The alien market was loud and bright, full of strange lights and even stranger creatures. Crowds of buyers walked from cage to cage, inspecting what was being sold. Most cages had strong or beautiful aliens, warriors, workers, mates, each one labeled with a price. The sellers shouted, showing off the value of their goods, calling for the highest bidder. But at the far end of the market, in a dark, dusty corner, sat a small cage that no one cared to see. Inside that cage was a girl. She was young, thin, and covered in a worn gray sheet. Her skin had a silver glow, and her large purple eyes were filled with sadness. She didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even look up when buyers passed by. On the cage was a sign written in bold red letters: unsuitable for bonding, infertile. No one wanted her, not for work, not for company, not even for entertainment. She's broken, one alien scoffed, walking past with his new purchase. Another laughed cruelly. What's the point of a female who can't produce? She's cursed, a seller nearby whispered to a curious customer. No family, no past, no value, he added. The girl heard every word, but she didn't cry. She had stopped crying long ago. In her small heart, she believed she was truly worthless. Then someone stopped in front of her cage. Not an alien, a human. He was tall, with a rough beard and tired eyes. His clothes were plain, his boots dusty. He didn't look like a rich man, and he wasn't carrying any weapons, but his eyes were kind. They looked straight into the cage, not with pity but curiosity. What's this one's story? The human asked the seller. The seller snorted. That one? No story worth hearing, human. She's an orphan, infertile, no strength, no speech. Maybe not even intelligent. He leaned closer. You want a companion? Go look over there. Or you want someone to breed? She's the worst choice you'll ever make. The human didn't walk away. Instead, he knelt down, his face level with the cage. The girl blinked, surprised. No one had ever come this close before. He studied her eyes. They weren't dull. They were afraid, yes, but not empty. There was something there, like a small flame, barely alive but still burning. How much? The human asked quietly. The seller laughed. 1 credit. Honestly, I'll give her for free. But I don't want her in my cage anymore. She scares the other buyers. The human reached into his pocket and took out a single metal coin. He placed it in the seller's hand, then turned back to the girl. He unlocked the cage slowly. She flinched as the door opened, expecting pain, expecting chains. But the man did nothing but hold out his coat. It's cold outside, he said. Put this on. The girl stared at the coat, then at him, then slowly, carefully took it and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was warm, too warm. She didn't understand it, but she held onto it tightly. The market fell quiet. Everyone stared. Some were confused. Some were laughing. A human took that one? Why? Maybe he's desperate, one alien joked. Or maybe he's blind, another chuckled. The girl heard it all, but for the first time, it didn't cut her like a blade. Because the human wasn't letting go of her hand, he walked slowly, leading her out of the market. She kept her head low, but her fingers clung to his like a lifeline. As they left the crowd behind, she whispered something. It was so soft, it almost got lost in the wind. Why me? The human looked down at her and answered, because no one else saw what I saw. They disappeared into the distance. A strange pair, one broken, one tired, both carrying wounds no one could see. But maybe, just maybe, they had found something in each other that no one else wanted to see. And behind them, in the dark corners of the market, a silent watcher turned and whispered, he chose her. He doesn't know what he's done. Evan didn't speak much on the way home. He held the girl's hand carefully, as if she was made of glass. She followed silently, her bare feet cold against the ground. But she didn't complain. Not once. Every now and then, she looked up at his face, trying to read him, trying to understand why he had taken her. The walk to Evan's home was long and quiet. They passed through dead forests and frozen rivers. The girl glanced around nervously, like she expected someone to jump out and take her back, but no one came. The world was silent. Just like her heart had been for years. After nearly 2 hours, they reached a small wooden cabin hidden in the rocks. Smoke curled from its chimney. A rusty metal door creaked open as Evan stepped in. "Welcome home," he said softly, though. The words felt strange on his tongue. He wasn't used to guests, especially not ones like her. Inside it was simple: one chair, one bed, a small stove, and shelves full of books. Evan gently led the girl to the corner near the heat panel and sat her down. "You hungry?" he asked. She blinked once, slowly, then nodded, almost too shy to answer. He went to the stove and began heating up a bowl of soup. The smell filled the small cabin, rich, warm, comforting. She stared at the rising steam like it was magic. When he handed her the bowl, she didn't move right away. Her hands shook as she held it, and for a moment, she just stared into the liquid. "Go ahead," he said. "Eat." She took a small sip, then another. Suddenly, her body shivered, warmth flooding her stomach. Tears welled in her eyes, not from pain, but from shock. She had never tasted something so good. Evan watched in silence. She ate slowly, as if afraid the food might vanish. When she finished, she whispered again, "Why did you buy me?" Evan rubbed the back of his neck and sighed. "I didn't buy you," he said. "I saved you. No one deserves to be caged like that." The girl tilted her head, confused. "Even if I'm broken?" He looked her in the eyes. "You're not broken," he replied. "You're just hurt." Her lips trembled, and she turned her face away. No one had ever told her that before. That night, Evan gave her a blanket and let her sleep on the bed. He took the floor, lying down with a pillow and thin sheet. The girl curled up like a scared animal, holding the blanket tightly. She didn't sleep much. She kept watching him in the dark, unsure if it was all real or just a dream. When morning came, Evan was already up, cooking something again. The smell of eggs and bread filled the room. She sat up slowly, blinking in the morning light. He handed her a plate and said, "Name." She blinked. "What? You have a name?" he asked. She shook her head. "No one ever gave me one." He nodded slowly, thinking. "Then we'll find one," he said. "Something that suits you." That day, Evan let her sit near the window and read old picture books. She didn't understand most of the words, but she tried. Evan noticed how quickly she learned. Every time he taught her a new word, she remembered it. She wasn't slow or useless. She was bright, just hidden under fear. That evening, Evan worked outside chopping firewood. He noticed her watching him from the doorway. She looked at him. Not with fear now, but curiosity, maybe even trust. Suddenly, a loud noise came from behind the cabin. Evan grabbed his old blaster and ran toward the sound. The girl followed, barefoot and scared, behind the cabin. A wild animal, large and spiked, had gotten stuck in the fence. It growled and snapped. Trying to break free, Evan raised his weapon, ready to shoot, but the girl ran past him and whispered something in a strange alien tongue. The creature stopped. It growled low, then slowly backed away and vanished into the woods. Evan stared at her, shocked. "You speak to animals?" She looked down. "I don't know how, but they listen." He realized she wasn't ordinary at all. Maybe the market seller didn't know her truth. Maybe no one did. That night, as the fire crackled inside the cabin, Evan watched her sleep. She no longer trembled. She looked peaceful. He whispered to himself, "You're not what they said you were." And outside, far in the sky, something dark moved among the stars. Someone or something had noticed she was missing, and they were coming. The sun was rising slowly, casting pale light across the trees. Inside the small wooden cabin, the silver-skinned girl sat quietly near the warm heater. She held a thin blanket around her shoulders, but her eyes were wide open. She had barely slept. Her heart still didn't believe this place was real. Evan stood at the stove again, stirring something inside a small black pot. The smell was different today, stronger, richer, almost sweet. The girl sat still, watching him from the corner. He glanced over his shoulder. "Hungry?" She nodded but hesitated. Last night, the food had been warm and soft. This smell. It made her stomach growl like never before. Evan smiled gently and poured the soup into a metal bowl. He placed a piece of warm bread beside it, then walked over and set it down in front of her. "No one else here but us," he said softly. "Eat as much as you like." She looked at the food, her hands shaking slightly. Then slowly, she reached out and touched the edge of the bowl. It was warm, but not too hot. She picked it up carefully and took a slow sip. The taste hit her like a memory she never had. She paused, took another sip, then another. Tears began to form in her eyes. It wasn't just the taste, it was the feeling, comfort, care, safety. She didn't rush. She ate slowly, savoring every bite of the bread, every drop of the soup. Her stomach finally stopped hurting. Her body finally stopped shaking. Evan didn't say much. He just watched her, noticed the way her hands moved, how her eyes shifted between fear and wonder. He'd seen soldiers recover from trauma, but he had never seen anyone so young, so broken, start to come alive again so quickly. After the meal, she looked up at him. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Thank you." He nodded. "You're welcome. What do I call you?" She asked shyly. "Evan," he replied. "That's my name." She looked down. "I don't have one." "Then we'll find one," he said, sitting beside her. He looked at her silver skin and glowing purple eyes. "How about Mira?" he offered. "It means something beautiful in the stars." The girl paused. Her lips moved slowly. "Mira," she tried again. "Mira," and then for the first time she smiled. A small, soft smile that made Evan's chest tighten. She had never smiled before, not even once. The rest of the day passed slowly. Evan gave Mira a book with simple pictures and words. She touched the pages like they were treasure. She pointed at the drawings and repeated words after Evan. Tree, sky, fire, home. Every time she got one right, her eyes lit up with pride. She was learning fast. Far faster than Evan expected. That afternoon, Evan went outside to check his tool shed. Mira peeked through the window and watched him. She noticed how he moved strong, careful, quiet, and she saw something else too: loneliness. He didn't talk to anyone, didn't call anyone. He lived in silence just like she used to. When he came back inside, Mira surprised him. She was sitting at the table, trying to copy words from the book onto a piece of old paper. He raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You've got good memory," he said. Mira looked up, a little embarrassed. "I want to learn," she whispered. Evan sat beside her. "Then I'll teach you." Later that night, as the cabin dimmed and the heater warmed the room, Mira sat near Evan on the floor. He was fixing an old communication device, a broken model from years ago. Mira watched closely, her fingers itching to help. "Can I try?" she asked. Evan blinked, surprised. "Sure," he said, handing her a tool. She examined the wires, twisted two of them together, and connected a pin. The device sparked and lit up for a moment. Evan laughed. "Looks like you're good with machines, too." Mira looked down, a little shy. "I used to fix scraps in the cage," she said. "They didn't know I could." Evan's expression changed. So she wasn't just smart, she had been hiding it, because she knew showing intelligence could get her punished. She had survived by pretending to be less. That made his chest ache. "Mira," he said seriously, "you never have to hide again." She looked at him, eyes wide. "You're safe here with me." She nodded slowly, and that night, she slept deeper than she ever had. No nightmares, no fear, just the sound of the heater and the memory of her first real meal. But far away, on a cold, distant moon, a signal had been sent from the market. A buyer had tracked the sale of the broken Orphan. And someone powerful had seen the data. They whispered in a dark room, "She's alive. And she's with a human," a voice replied. "Then bring her back." Days passed quietly in the small cabin in the woods. Mira now had her own blanket, her own seat by the heater, and a toothbrush that Evan gave her proudly. She still spoke softly, still flinched when something moved too fast. But there was something else now. A small fire behind her eyes growing stronger every day. Evan noticed. How she touched everything with purpose. She didn't just look, she studied. The broken tools, the wires, the books, she treated them like puzzles waiting to be solved. She never wasted time, she never got bored. One morning, while Evan was working outside chopping firewood, he heard a loud click from the storage room. He rushed inside, hand on his blaster, and found Mira standing over a long-dead farming drone. "Its lights now blinking, Mira," he said slowly. "Did you do that?" She looked nervous. "I saw the parts and remembered how they worked." Evan crouched beside the drone, examining the wiring. It was fixed perfectly. He hadn't told her how it worked, hadn't given her the schematics. She had figured it out on her own. He looked at her, his eyes serious. "Mira, where did you learn this?" She shook her head. "I don't know. I've never touched a real one before." Evan nodded slowly, not pushing her. But something didn't sit right. She wasn't just smart, she was gifted. And maybe engineered. Later that day, Mira helped him cook. She cut vegetables with care, using a small dull knife. Evan was about to hand her a sharper one when he saw something strange. As the knife slipped from her hand, it fell toward her foot, faster. Then thought. Mira moved her hand, caught it midair. Perfectly. Her eyes widened, and she dropped the knife in shock. Evan didn't say anything, but he had seen it clearly. No one with slow reflexes could move like that. No weak orphan could kick a blade that fast. Something wasn't adding up. That night, Evan pulled out an old military med scanner. He didn't tell Mira, he just waited until she slept. Carefully, he scanned her body. The results flickered on the small screen, and Evan's breath caught in his throat. Her bones were denser than human bones. Her neural activity was faster than any normal being. Her fertility status showed unknown, but not infertile, and buried in the scan logs. One code kept flashing. Genetic ID, Royal Designation, Class X. Evan sat back, staring at the screen. Royal. Who had this girl been before she was thrown into a cage? And why had they lied about her? The next morning, Myra noticed Evan was quiet. He didn't talk much during breakfast. She watched him closely, sensing the change in his energy. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked carefully. Evan looked at her and shook his head. "No," he said. "You did something amazing." He showed her the drone she had fixed, then gently placed the scanner in front of her. "These results," he said, "they show something rare inside you." Mira looked at the screen, then at him. "I don't understand." "You're not broken," Evan said slowly. "You're something special. They called you infertile to keep others away. But the truth is, you're powerful." Mira sat quietly, the words hanging in the air. "I never knew," she whispered. "I just hid everything to survive." Evan nodded. "You were right to hide. If they had known, they wouldn't have just sold you. They would have destroyed you." That night while Mira slept, Evan stood outside the cabin, looking up at the stars. He knew someone out there must be searching for her, and soon they would come. The next day, Evan taught Mira how to use a simple plasma tool. She picked it up faster than any student he'd ever seen. She repaired an old light panel in minutes, rewired a broken radio in under an hour. Evan watched her, not just as a protector now, but as someone amazed. But as Mira smiled and handed him the working radio, a red light blinked silently on the device. Evan's face turned cold. Someone was listening. He quickly shut it off and hid it, then gently placed a hand on Myra's shoulder. "Tomorrow," he said, "we start preparing." "Preparing for what?" she asked. "For the ones who will come for you." Myra's smile faded. "But I'm safe here, right?" Evan hesitated, then answered, "You're safe with me." And deep in the shadows of space, an alien ship received the signal. A voice spoke softly in an unknown tongue. "She's awake. She remembers. Send the retrieval team." The forest was quiet, but Evan didn't relax. Each tree seemed to whisper warnings. Each breeze felt like a message from far away. He had lived alone for years. He knew what normal silence sounded like, and this silence was not normal. Mira was inside, sitting at the table with an old book. She had become good at reading now. Every word she learned made her eyes glow a little brighter. She didn't know that Evan had scanned her blood. She didn't know what the results truly meant. But Evan couldn't keep the truth hidden anymore. He returned to the cabin, locked the door, and sat in front of her. "Mira," he said gently, "I need to tell you something." She looked up, nervous. "Am I in trouble?" "No," he said, "but the people who called you broken, they lied." He showed her the scanner's screen again, this time with a small hologram. "This symbol," he pointed. "Do you know it?" Her eyes widened. Her breath caught in her throat. She whispered, "I've seen it." "In dreams," Evan nodded. "It's the crest of an ancient bloodline. A royal one. You're not just any alien girl, Mira. You were born from something powerful, genetically designed, enhanced." Mira stared at her hands. "I don't feel powerful," she said. "I was thrown away. They marked me as useless. They said I could never have children." Evan leaned forward. "That's the part they feared the most, because your blood isn't just strong. It's rare and dangerous to those in power." He explained what he found. Her cells had memory, a deep, embedded code. She wasn't just fertile, she was designed to create future leaders. Stronger, smarter, faster. A new generation of a forgotten empire. And that's why they locked her up, not because she was broken, but because she was a threat. Mira's hands trembled. She had never wanted power. She had never even dreamed of a family. But now she was being told she was something important. Evan could see the storm inside her eyes. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're still Mira," he said. "Nothing changes that." But Myra looked at him and asked the question that was eating her inside. "Do you still want me? Even now?" Evan didn't hesitate. "I chose you when I thought you had nothing. And now I know you had everything. I'm not leaving you." That night, Mira stood outside the cabin under the stars. She looked up, her silver skin glowing under the moonlight. Something inside her was waking up. Memories that were never taught. Voices from long ago echoing in her blood. She closed her eyes and whispered words she didn't remember learning. The trees responded. The wind stilled. Her body felt warmer, stronger. She wasn't scared anymore. But far above, in orbit around the planet, a black ship had arrived. No lights, no markings, just pure shadow inside. Cold alien eyes stared at a screen showing Myra's face. "She has awakened," said one of the officers. A taller figure stepped forward, covered in ancient armor. "She must be retrieved," he growled. "Alive, no damage. She carries the last sequence." Inside the cabin, Evan worked all night reinforcing the doors and windows. He set up traps in the woods, hidden sensors. Old military tech powered by scrap batteries. Mira helped him, asking no questions. She understood now. The peaceful life they had was ending. But Evan wasn't preparing to run. He was preparing to protect. The next day, Evan handed Mira a small device, flat, circular, and warm to the touch. "What's this?" she asked. "A memory drive," he said. "It contains information from your scan, everything we know so far. If something happens to me, you must take it and go." Mira shook her head firmly. "I won't leave you." But Evan looked into her eyes and said, "If I fall, you survive. You're the future, not me." Later that evening, Mira stood at the edge of the forest. She could feel them. Dark eyes watching, claws waiting. They hadn't attacked yet, but they were close. She whispered to the wind again, and this time, the birds flew away as if obeying her voice. The trees shifted slightly, like they were listening. Evan watched from the porch, amazed. "You're more than I ever imagined," he said, and far in the sky, the enemy ship began its descent. The retrieval team readied their weapons, not to kill, but to capture the one girl who could rewrite the galaxies. Power. They didn't know she was no longer alone, and they didn't know she was ready. The first sign was silence. Not the normal peaceful kind. This was a heavy, sharp silence, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Birds had vanished, winds had stopped. Even the branches stayed still. Evan stood by the cabin window, holding his old blaster tight in his hand. His eyes scanned the trees, his muscles tense. He had felt this before in war, in ambushes, in death zones. He turned toward Mira, who stood near the table, her hands clutching the data drive he had given her. "They're here," he said quietly. Mira's heart pounded. But she didn't shake this time. She nodded, stepping beside him. "What do we do?" Evan looked out the window again. "We don't run. They won't let us. We fight." In the dark woods beyond the cabin, shadowed figures moved. Tall, armored, fast too fast. Alien soldiers, silent and trained. Their weapons didn't hum, didn't glow. They were designed for one thing: stealth capture. Inside the ship above them, a commander spoke calmly into a headset. "Begin the retrieval," he said. "Alive, no damage. But kill the human if he resists." Evan had already activated the traps. Hidden lasers blinked to life, explosive. Charges powered by scrap energy buzzed under pressure plates. And most importantly, his old signal jammer pulsed low-frequency interference to buy them time. Mira moved to the side room where she had hidden small energy packs and tools. She grabbed 2 stun sticks and returned to Evan. He raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're ready for this?" She nodded. "They took everything from me. I'm not going back." The first attacker reached the outer tree line. He stepped on a wire, and the forest exploded in light. A flash mine lit up the entire area and threw the alien back into the air. Screams followed as other troops stumbled into more traps. Evan pulled Mira down behind a barrier. "They'll come harder now," he whispered. "They won't stop until they have you," Myra gritted her teeth. "Then we won't stop." Other. The next wave was smarter. They used heat sensors and night vision. They avoided most of the traps and closed in fast. Evan fired his blaster, hitting 2 in the legs. Mira used the stun stick with shocking precision, hitting one in the neck and another in the chest. She moved like a fighter who had been trained. But she hadn't. Her body simply remembered what her mind had forgotten. It was like instinct, like something inside her had finally woken up. But the enemies kept coming. 10, then 15, then more. Evan was hit in the shoulder, falling back behind cover. Blood ran down his arm. But he still lifted his weapon. Mira screamed and pulled him back, pressing a heated patch to stop the bleeding. "They're going to break through," he said, breathing hard. "You need to run." She shook her head. "No, I won't leave you." Just then, the roof of the cabin exploded. A massive black figure dropped through the hole. It was twice as tall as a human, its body wrapped in dark armor. Its eyes glowed with red light. It reached for Mira with a mechanical hand. Evan raised his blaster. But the creature swatted it aside like paper. It stepped forward and grabbed Mira's arm. She gasped in pain, but before she could scream, something inside her snapped. Her hand glowed with strange energy, pale blue and burning. She looked up into the creature's eyes and growled, "Let me go." A pulse of power shot from her palm into the creature's chest. It flew backward through the wall, crashing into the trees outside. Everything went silent again. Mira fell to her knees, shaking. Evan crawled to her side, coughing. "What was that?" he asked. Mira stared at her own hand. "I don't know," she whispered, "but it's part of me." Suddenly, the radio on Evan's belt crackled to life. A voice came through, low, distorted, female. "You're not safe." It said, "They'll keep coming. Head west, to the old mining colony. There are others like her." Evan and Mira looked at each other. "Who was that?" he asked. "I don't know," she said, "but if there are others, maybe I'm not alone." Evan stood slowly, still bleeding. He reached for his pack and tossed Mira a thermal cloak. "We leave at dawn," he said. "We run now, outside." The forest was burning in small patches. Alien bodies lay still among the trees, and far above, the black ship turned slowly away. Its mission failed for now, but more would come, and Mira She was no longer just an orphan. She was something the stars had forgotten, and now remembered. The road west was rough. Old dirt paths cut through dead forests and rocky hills. Evan limped beside Mira, pain in every step, but he didn't complain. He had bandaged his shoulder the best he could, but the wound still throbbed. Mira tried to help carry his pack, even though she was tired too. They had barely slept, barely eaten, but they kept going. The voice from the radio hadn't come again. Whoever it was, friend or stranger, had gone silent, but the message had been clear. They weren't safe anymore. They needed to find the old mining colony. For hours they walked without speaking. Finally, as the sky turned orange, Evan pointed to the horizon. "There," he said. "See that hill?" Mira nodded. "The old colony is under it," he said, "carved inside the rock." They reached the edge of the colony just after sunset. The gates were broken, old machines rusted and buried in dust, but lights flickered in the deep tunnels. Below, someone was still there. Evan knocked 3 times on a rusted door, then waited. A slot opened, and 2 glowing eyes peered out. "State your name," a deep voice demanded. Evan replied, "I'm not important, but the girl with M.E. "She is." The door opened slowly. A tall alien woman stood behind it, her skin dark like night, her eyes glowing with silver light. She looked at Mira and froze, then whispered, "You survived." They were led down a long tunnel into a hidden camp. There were others there, aliens of different species, but all quiet, all watchful. They looked at Mira with a strange mix of fear and hope. The tall woman introduced herself as Kale. She was one of the last members of the ancient house that Mira's bloodline belonged to. "You were taken when you were a baby," Kale said. "They told us you died, but we searched. We never gave up." Mira sat on a bench, her hands shaking. "I didn't know who I was," she whispered. "I thought I was nothing." Kale knelt beside her, placing a hand on her chest. "You were everything," she said. "They feared your future, so they erased your past." That night, Evan sat alone near the fire. He watched Mira sleep for the first time without fear on her face. Her breathing was soft, her hands tucked under her cheek. She looked like a child again, safe, calm, loved. Kale sat beside Evan quietly. "You protected her," she said. Evan nodded. "She saved me too." Kale looked at him, serious. "You know what she carries, right?" Evan looked down. "I know she's powerful, but she's still a kid." Kale shook her head. "She's more than powerful. She's the last of the stubborn line. She holds the dormant code that could restart the ancient bloodline. She's not just capable of creating life, she was designed to guide it." Evan stared into the fire. He remembered when he first saw her, small, cold, alone, given away for nothing, and now she was the future of a forgotten legacy. The next morning, Mira woke with a strange feeling in her chest. She walked to Evan's side and sat beside him. "I had a dream," she whispered. "I saw a light inside me. It felt warm." Evan smiled weakly. "That's your heart remembering who you are." She looked into his eyes and asked softly, "Do you regret saving me?" He shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "You were the best thing I ever did." Suddenly Kale stepped forward with a small device. "Mira, we scanned you last night while you slept," she said. "There's something else." Mira frowned. "What is it?" Kale looked between her and Evan, then held out the device. The display blinked gently. "Cellular fusion confirmed. Genetic blend successful. Conception probability 98%. Mira's mouth fell open. "What does that mean?" Kale answered, her voice calm. "It means you're carrying life. A new child, part of you." "And part of him." Evan froze, his hand shaking. Mira stared at her stomach, still and silent. "I didn't know," she whispered. Kale nodded. "Your design was never broken. You were never infertile. You were just locked until the right bond awakened it." Evan slowly reached for Myra's hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, she looked up at him and whispered, "Will you stay with me?" His voice cracked as he answered, "Always." Outside the colony, the stars began to shift. War was coming, but so was a new future, and at the heart of it stood a girl once called Broken. Now chosen, now whole, and beside her, the human who saw what no one else did. Not a weapon, not a slave, but a soul worth saving.